everyone. What does it mean to have a healthy diet? Can we really avoid chronic diseases by eating a healthy diet? And is there a connection between maintaining a nutritious eating plan and our brain health? These are among the questions we will be talking about today. So stay with us. We promise you'll learn a lot. My name is Marcia Goldberger. I'm a volunteer with AARP Maryland, co-producer of our Brain Health interview series, and I'm also part of our Speakers Bureau. This is another interview in our series dealing with the brain health and mental well-being of older adults. This recorded video will be available at our homepage and also on Facebook and YouTube. So here to talk about the importance of good nutrition and how it impacts our bodies and brains is Christine Van Bloem. Christine is the founder and owner of the Empty Nest Kitchen, retraining empty nesters on how to cook for just one or two people while finding fun in the kitchen with a healthy-ish vibe. A heart attack survivor, Christine has reformed her butter-loving, heavy cream-worshipping ways by making changes in how to cook, taking food in a healthier direction while still keeping things flavorful and delightful. She attended cooking school in New York City, has cooked professionally, and does a cooking show for AARP Maryland every month. So let's start with healthy eating, having a healthy diet. How can you describe that for us, Christine?
Hello, Marcia. I'm so excited to be here. So, a healthy diet, I think, is a diet that's full of lots of lean proteins, veggies, fruits, whole grains, and of course, way low on all of those ultra processed kind of foods.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's really unprocessed foods, maybe natural, like you said, fruit, vegetables. Now, you can still indulge in foods you know aren't healthy. A piece of chocolate cake, a bag of chips, a dish of ice cream every once in a while. Balance is key, right?
Absolutely. So I think if you are trying to go from 0 to 100 and stop eating everything that we think, air quotes, tastes good, right? That's a formula for disaster. Who can
Mm,
stick to that?
mhm.
I am not a woman who is great at moderation, but having a little treat is totally okay. Listen, we're not going for perfection here. We're
Mhm.
going to live a fulfilling life, but we want to fuel ourselves when we can with the right stuff.
Mhm. Right. Now that really makes sense. We have to have a treat sometimes, or we would just, drive ourselves crazy. A steady diet of poor nutrition, however, is harmful. In fact, according to a collaboration of organizations, including the American Health Association, Hunger Free America, and others, poor diets are the leading cause of death and disability in the US. Nutrition has strong ties to illnesses such as heart disease, stroke, cancer, and diabetes. And this is really interesting. 7 out of 10 US adults are overweight or obese. So, without giving medical advice, which of course we can't do in our interview, can you tell us how eating a healthy diet can help us avoid being diabetic or having heart problems or other chronic conditions? There are foods that are really helpful in keeping us away from diseases. Isn't this true?
Absolutely. So, first of all, I am no doctor. I would never try to give anyone medical advice.
Hmm.
But what I am is a chef. So, what I understand is how to take these guidelines and make them taste delicious. Make it taste like you're not eating rabbit food, right? Because that is where we get caught up. Now, I received my CCMP, or Certified Culinary Medicine Provider
Mhm.
certification, and we talked all about using food to work for health. In the course
Mhm.
that I did, it was crazy. Every week we addressed a
Mm,
different medical condition and how
mhm.
to tailor a diet for that, and then cooking through all of those sorts of
Mm,
things. It was
mhm.
fascinating learning about kidney diets for someone who has kidney disease
Mm,
and the potassium that you have to watch. We did
mm,
diets for folks who aren't able to chew. That was crazy learning all
mm,
about that and coming
mhm.
at it from a chef's perspective,
Mhm.
really interesting. Then, of course, we learned about the big guys. Eating well when you have diabetes, or eating well when you have heart disease. And as you mentioned,
Mhm.
I'm actually a heart attack survivor. I had a
Yes.
Widowmaker heart attack back in
Oh.
2020. And
Mhm.
I mean, I'm here today because
Mhm.
I was lucky enough to have it in the hospital.
Mm,
But eating well for all of that is going to help you along. You do have to
mhm.
understand, though, that there are heredity aspects that will always come into play here. I'm finishing up cardiac rehab now, and I'm always a little
Okay.
down on myself. And they say to me over and over, you have to remember heredity plays a part. So you can eat a
Mhm.
fabulous diet all the time. You've got to
Mhm.
pay attention to what your lineage tells you. I have a father and a grandfather, and before that, who knows who each had heart attacks. So you have to look at family history and then do
Mhm.
your part in doing the most you can to help through that.
Oh, that is really interesting and such a great point on heredity. My mother had had a heart attack at the age of 69, and I'm a little bit past that age, and just really, but I do keep it in mind. And you have to think about exercise as well as the diet. So, we can talk a little bit more about that. I just wanted to know, like, how you would describe the connection between our diets and keeping our minds sharp, nourishing our brains.
Oh, brain food. Don't we love brain food? I swear, my mother, who had mild Alzheimer's, she thought that cheeseburgers with bacon and sweet potato fries were the best brain food.
Okay, I can see
Now,
that.
she was wrong, but it was, when you're looking at keeping your brain healthy,
Hmm.
I'm truthfully, I am a big fan of the Mediterranean diet and what
Okay.
all that includes and how that
Hmm.
impacts not just heart health, but brain health as well, right?
Hmm.
So it's really keeping a diet with healthy fats. And
Hmm.
what do you consider a healthy fat? We all know avocados are fantastic.
Hmm.
Nuts are a great source of healthy fat. And duh, if we're talking Mediterranean diet, we're totally talking olive oil, right?
Oh,
Really good
yes.
olive oil,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. Right, of course. And fish, right? Isn't that a big part of the Mediterranean
Fish
diet?
Fish is a big part of a Mediterranean diet, but lean proteins. And when we're talking lean proteins, we're talking about we've got that fish in there, but we
Hmm.
can be talking about chicken, we can be talking about tofu.
Okay.
Truthfully, I know it's a little out there on the Mediterranean diet, but I do love pork tenderloin because it's a really
Hmm.
lean cut that you don't have
Okay.
to overcook until you're
Hmm.
sure it's done.
Right.
Um, Anything that doesn't have lots of excess fat on it that way, that is going to really work for you. So a porterhouse steak, not a lean protein, but
Okay. Hmm.
as we were saying, you can indulge every once in a while if the foundation of your diet is including the leafy greens, the lean proteins, those
Hmm.
sorts of things that you're adding in.
Right. That is just the greatest advice. And, maybe now you can give us a couple of ideas on ways to prepare some of these things, like, making a big pot of beans, for instance, that you can use, in different recipes.
Oh my gosh. So I hated beans. I've always hated beans. And I
Hmm.
remember my friend Jane back in college would always put chickpeas on her salad. I would
Okay.
sort of go, who wants to eat that? Right. And now I'm a total beanhead. I love beans. What a phenomenal source. Beans and legumes, so think
Okay.
lentils and that sort of thing,
Right.
are so good for
Hmm.
you. Oh my gosh. But if you're just eating a pot of beans, and let me tell you, there's a fancy bean company, and you can look, there are all sorts of heirloom beans, thing
Oh.
like that now.
Okay.
I got myself a bag of some kind of beans and I
Hmm.
focused in. I got the dried beans, I soaked them, I cooked them, I boiled them, I ate them for 4 days. They were delicious. I'm just gonna let you know those beans were delicious. But being able to incorporate that into different things. I make a recipe and it
Hmm.
is one of my 20-minute quick healthy recipes, and I've
Hmm.
done it for an AARP class, shrimp
Okay.
and white beans, where
Really?
you're using paprika and you're using lots of good herbs in there,
Hmm.
and cannellini beans, which I love. Some folks call them
Hmm.
white kidney beans, but those cooked in there and then throwing some shrimp in, little slab of some whole grain
Okay.
crusty bread. That is
Yeah.
perfect for the winter. It's perfect for this kind of weather.
Hmm.
But if you're in the summer, I remember the first time I made a white bean crostini, and I was like, carbs on carbs, tell me
Oh.
more, right? Where you take again those white beans and maybe a little bit of olive oil and rosemary and garlic and crushed red pepper and maybe a little hint of balsamic. I mean, how easy is that? And put it on some grilled or toasted bread. It is phenomenal. It is
Ah.
so
Hmm.
good. Ah, but here's a trick. And
Okay.
this is important, especially as we're getting older. All right, I'm gonna keep it low because we don't want to talk about this out loud. But beans, of course, can make people a little gassy, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So, bean liquid, the liquid that comes if you're buying a can of beans, and there is no shame here. Canned beans are phenomenal. They're so good. Who has the time for all that soaking and cooking and prep? Canned beans have a liquid in them, and that liquid tends to amplify the gassiness that some folks have.
Ah.
So, if that is something you or perhaps a partner is sensitive to, you always want to drain those beans and rinse those beans. And it just helps alleviate some of that. Because some folks get it. I mean, for heaven's
Mhm.
sakes, there are rhymes about it, right? So some folks want to, they'll skip the beans because they're thinking of that. But that is
Right.
an easy fix that you can do to
Ah.
help yourself.
Thank you, Kirsty. That is just really wonderful. And that is great news about all the ways you can prepare beans and that you should, get the liquid out of there when you're cooking them. So thank you for that. Now, we talked about the Mediterranean diet. Also, and this is probably pretty similar, I was reading about the Blue Zone diet, and actually, there's a Netflix special on it. So, apparently, there are blue zones in certain parts of the world, in Greece and Japan and Italy, where people live to be over 100 years old and they're healthy. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What are these people eating?
Sure. And did you know there's even one in the United States? I believe it's out in California. And
Yes.
if I'm correct, it's where
Hmm.
there is a very heavy population of Jehovah's Witnesses because of the diets that they eat and the things that
Hmm.
they avoid. So I was thrilled to see the US was part of that. But of course, we're also talking California, and think of California as that basket, right, of all those wonderful fruits and vegetables that are
Hmm.
able to be grown there in their Central
Right.
Valley and all that. But
Yes.
look at the places we're talking about, Japan,
Hmm.
Greece, right? These are
Right.
places that are eating tons of fish. They're eating tons of fresh fruits and vegetables. They're
Hmm.
really putting that diet at the forefront. It's so close to the Mediterranean diet.
Okay.
And did you know that no diet, and think of diet in this terms as like weight loss diet, but
Mm-hmm.
no diet has been proven to be better than any other diet when it comes to weight loss. The Mediterranean diet, which is a lifestyle, not a
Mm-hmm.
weight loss thing, is the
Mm-hmm.
only one that has proven results. It's shown to really have tremendous benefits.
That is such great information for our listeners because many of us are on a quest to lose weight. And, there are so many different diets out there. And, so we don't want to, name names or anything, but what you're getting at is that eating healthfully, eating unprocessed food, fresh foods is really the way to go, rather than eating, whatever the fad diet may be. But I did want to ask you about supplements and vitamins also. Are they helpful or not really necessary if you eat enough healthy foods? Or does this maybe just depend on what the supplement is and the individual?
Well, I think that is a great question for your
Mm-hmm.
own doctor, for your own case. But
Mm-hmm.
I will say I'm not a huge supplement girl, except I take my vitamin D because my
Okay.
doc says, especially in the winter, take your vitamin D. And I
Mm-hmm.
take my vitamin B because they've told me to take that. But other than
Mm-hmm.
using sometimes turmeric is one
Mm-hmm.
that folks will use for inflammation,
Mm-hmm.
to help bring that down. That's one that some folks hop on, but a tip on that is whenever you're looking, and I've actually had an orthopedic surgeon
Yeah.
recommend turmeric capsules to
Oh,
me.
okay.
But
Mm-hmm.
whenever you're trying that, you want
Mm-hmm.
to really look at your packages here to see what you're getting. For example, turmeric needs black pepper with it to really be effective
Oh,
because
okay.
black pepper
Mm-hmm.
irritates the stomach lining a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and that helps turmeric absorb. But there are so many darn supplements out there, and it's a field that's really unregulated. And in
Mhm.
this day and age, I'm a science girly. I like the science. I want to know what science tells me, and I want to know
Mhm.
what my own doctor thinks as well. So you do need to be careful. As a heart attack survivor, I take
Mhm.
handfuls of pills every day,
Mhm.
right? That I
Mhm.
will take for the rest of my life. Sometimes supplements interact with medications that you are prescribed. So it's
Right.
super important if you're going to your doctor, it's super important to tell them any supplements you're taking. I mean, heck, I even tell them when I'm taking biotin because I feel like all my hair is falling out. You've got to tell them everything that
Tell
you're
them
taking.
everything.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a really great answer because you can walk down the aisles of the grocery store or go into a specialty store and it gets kind of confusing. There are just so many vitamins and supplements. So the best thing is to talk with your care provider and go from there. So I wanted to ask you, exercise, if that's also a part of healthy eating. People in the blue zones, for instance, who lived to be over 100 years old and were healthy, used their bodies as well as ate a great diet. They gardened, they walked, and they took care of their own homes. So, I think it's important to note the social aspects of eating and exercise as well. Our oftentimes when we get together with friends and family, it's all about food, but bring in exercise as well, right?
absolutely. I look at my parents who've both passed,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember they were just so tired. They got to later life, and it becomes really easy to get a person-shaped divot in your couch or in your recliner, especially when it's cold out, right? There's not
Yes.
a ton of incentive to get out there. But I really strive to get some movement in because I'll tell you,
Mm-hmm.
mentally, for
Mm-hmm.
mental health, I think getting outside and I think moving is
Mm-hmm.
so vital. I'll bundle up. Listen, single digits, forget it. I've got a mug of ice cream and I'm watching something great. But most of the time, you can get out and you can do a little walk. The social aspect is great, but
Hmm.
I actually prefer to walk alone a lot of times.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
like the time to be in my own head. I like the time to hear nature sounds and
Right.
hear the birds and hear what's
Hmm.
happening. I'm fortunate enough to live near a small college, and walking around their campus, especially when there aren't students, is really lovely. But when you're surrounded
Hmm.
by all that youth, it's pretty great too. It's
That
all
is great.
about moving.
It is. It is all about moving. Let me ask you another question. There are unique challenges of menopause, as many of us know. What do you recommend for women in this stage of life to maintain good health and to balance their moods?
Oh my gosh, this is my pet subject. I love this because so when I did my CCMP this past summer,
Hmm.
and they told us we could do a capstone project on anything we wanted. Didn't matter. We could do anything as long as
Hmm.
it related to culinary medicine and nutrition.
Hmm.
And I was like, this is great. I'm going to talk about menopause. I'm going to dig in.
Hmm.
No information. There was so little information out there. And I will
Hmm.
say, in the time since I completed my project, I just hopped on the bandwagon at the right time. I am not the cause of it. But menopause, and I think it's due to the millennials starting to hit perimenopause,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
they're not going down without a fight. And I love that. That's good for even us. That's good for even
Hmm.
us
Hmm.
because eating well in menopause has been proven to reduce symptoms, right? So hot flashes. I was getting my
Hmm.
7 o'clock hot flash every night
Hmm. Hmm.
where
Hmm.
you can feel your scalp start
Hmm.
sweating. Oh
Hmm.
my gosh. And it feels like you're radiating heat. Well, I noticed I was also eating a bunch of sugar right before that.
Oh,
Well, look
okay.
there. Son of a biscuit. I can't even believe that. And when you're in menopause, perimenopause, postmenopause, menopause, if you are eating that Mediterranean diet, you are going to find that it really benefits you. And fiber is our best friend. We love
Uh-huh.
fiber and we love protein. You can't open your eyes in the morning without hearing about eating protein and putting
Hmm.
protein in everything, but it really works. Those lean proteins again and fiber. So
Hmm.
the beans we're talking about can be a
Hmm.
source of protein and fiber. Quinoa, I don't
Oh,
know if you've
quinoa.
had,
Yes,
right?
quinoa. Hmm.
High protein source of fiber. It's so good. It's so good.
It is good.
So eating that way is
Hmm.
such a huge benefit for women in menopause that want to try to manage their own symptoms. And again, talk to your doctor. You always want to talk to your doctor. But I don't think you'll find any doctor that says, no, you shouldn't try the Mediterranean diet because it's
Right.
so proven to be effective.
Right. No, that is great. I love that information. I think a lot of our listeners are going to be very interested in that. I'd like to ask you about what do you recommend for motivation? Staying to a good eating plan and for making it delicious and enjoyable. Because it's hard. Like we might think, I'm going to do better, the New Year's resolutions, I'm going to add more protein and whatever. But then, the cookies are staring you in the face and whatever. How do you maintain some good motivation here?
Well, I saw some great motivational speaker, something the past couple of
Hmm.
months, say nothing's going to motivate you to do
Mm.
this. It's your choice. And I think when we realize no one's coming to save us, no one's coming to do this for us. No one is coming to say, oh, Christine, the doctor I see twice a year will say, so are we going to do something about this weight? And then I won't see her for 6 more months, right? She
Mhm.
can't hold my hand through it. It's got to be my decision. And I think
Right.
not to sound like a Debbie Downer, because I really want to sound the opposite of that.
Yes.
Once I realized that it's on me,
Mm-hmm.
it changed things for me because I realized, yeah, I can have a cheeseburger, but I'm not having a cheeseburger every night, and I'm not having a cheeseburger every week or even every month
Right.
because it doesn't make me feel great. I
Mm-hmm.
love it, but it's for me, it's now about treating myself the way that I want to be treated, right? And it's about finding the things that make me feel good. And when you're
Mm-hmm.
young and you're so, I don't know, everything's so easy and nothing hurts. My husband calls it MOMP, migrating old man pain. When you just get the random, you get the random things,
Right.
random pains here and there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just harder getting older. It just is, right? We're not as springy. We
Mm-hmm.
need to take care for ourselves. And I'll tell you what, it's just getting good, right?
Yeah.
It's
Mm-hmm.
just getting good.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to be around for it. I want to take care of myself in a way. I want to eat really yummy food. And I think us being where we are in the age
Mm-hmm.
cycle, we grew up and we had those non-fat or low-fat cookies. We had, that whole era of awful food. And I think that it's a snow day here. I think that making food that tastes really good
Mm-hmm.
is what's going to get you through.
Oh, that's really a great answer because we really have to care for ourselves and nobody can, make us do it or grab that cheeseburger away from us. So we have to do it ourselves. So I just want to mention a few other things. You did talk a little bit about your culinary course where you studied food as medicine, and I just think that that is fantastic. And this is kind of a growing area. I wanted to just tell our listeners a few interesting statistics. This comes from Tufts University that 85% of all healthcare spending is related to the management of diet-related chronic diseases. And $13.6 billion would be saved each year if all eligible Americans received medically tailored meal interventions. So I just find that fascinating. And there are several food as medicine institutes whose mission is really to bridge the gap between traditional medicine and using food to prevent and treat diseases. So, anything that you want to add to that food as medicine or that you learned about or studies that you've read?
Well, I would say from the training that I received, what I
Mm-hmm.
would say is that it is a component in a healthy lifestyle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Eating the foods that work well for you. And in, heart health, there's also the DASH diet. You're going to find low sodium diets. You're going to find all sorts of things. I
Right.
would say that using food as a component of your health journey, the whole thing is really a great way to enjoy what you're eating, but as
Mhm.
part of something and not the whole thing. I think it's a really essential component.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, so diet alone isn't a replacement for medicine in many circumstances. But it's really, really important to have a healthy diet. So in concluding our nutrition and brain health interview, I think we really want to emphasize what you had just said before about motivation, that nobody cares more about your own health than you do. And as adults, we're all responsible for the care we take of ourselves. So, Christine, is there anything else that we may have forgotten, or is there anything else that you would wish to say or to underscore for our audience?
Well, I think that it's said best, and I wish I had come up with it, but it's like eat real food, mostly plants, right?
Okay.
And that
Mhm.
is the way to go. I want you to think when my cardiologist said maybe you should try a vegan diet, my immediate thought was no cheese. So I think
Mm, uh-huh.
that a diet that's 80% plants is really going to go a long way for you. And I think it's going to help you feel really good.
Okay, thank you so much. So we also have many resources, the AARP Brain Health Pillars and information specific to diet that's on our website. We will also make available to listeners Christine's The Empty Nest Kitchen website and her podcast and her cooking demo show. And we'll also provide some links to the Center for Food as Medicine at Tufts University, Harvard University, also for health law and policy innovation. They also have a Food is Medicine Center. So we hope listeners have found a lot of food for thought in this important discussion. Thanks so much, Christine, for sharing your expertise with us. And please tune in to Christine's monthly cooking show. Thank you.